My name is Stephen Mordew, lecturer in social work and an advocate for how self-care and being organised can fuel productivity both at work and at home. So far in this series we have explored how the physical elements of our well-being, sleep, nutrition and exercise contribute to positive outcomes, helping us increase our resilience and avoid those buckaroo moments. We're now going to move on to the psychological dimension of our well-being, and in this episode we're going to explore motivation. Making a start's the hardest part. You know how this goes. You know you need to get on with a task, yet you find yourself rearranging the paperwork on your desk or tidying your stationery drawer. You find yourself making every excuse not to go for that walk. You haven't got the right socks, or it looks like it's going to rain. You know a deadline's looming, but you find yourself distracted, checking your emails or your Twitter feed. You find yourself making coffee. You find yourself chatting to a colleague. Yet you know there's something pressing that needs to be done. So why do you not get on and do it? Let's explore the calendar effect. The calendar is an example of an external or extrinsic motivator, something that is external to us that motivates us to action, or sometimes gets in the way. Our psychological potential and therefore our motivation is influenced strongly by it. I'm sure you'll be familiar with the Sunday night blues. It's a time when free-floating anxiety can permeate into our world. You feel anxious, but you can't attach it to anything in particular other than the fact it's the first day of work tomorrow. Then there's the Monday morning panic of checking what's to do and figuring out how we're going to do it, and then getting over hump day on a Wednesday. And then the panic rises with what's left to do before clocking off on a Friday. I suspect we already instinctively know what research has shown, that we are at our least productive on Monday mornings and Friday afternoons. Interestingly, we are at our most productive on Tuesdays. Why is this? Monday mornings are often lost to planning for the week, reacquainting ourselves with where we were up to, checking on things outstanding and planning for the week ahead. By Tuesday, we can get going on the work that there is to do, after losing a lot of Monday to get to that point. We can offset this by meticulously planning next week on the last day of the previous week. For most of us, that's Friday afternoon. I'm a strong advocate for spending the last hour of Friday planning what you're going to do next week. Have you got the documents you require for that meeting? Have you got the phone numbers or addresses you need? Have you checked that thing with your manager that is stopping you from progressing on a task? Do all of this, get all of your ducks in a row. On a Monday morning, you can just get onto it. There is evidence that taking this approach also means you enjoy your weekend more because you've left everything at work nice and orderly. How you set your mind to the task is crucial to getting started and overcoming procrastination. Extrinsic motivation relies on rewards or the desire to avoid punishment. We are rewarded for doing our job with salary. We avoid the punishment of a reprimand by our manager by getting that thing done on time. Daniel Pink, in his book Drive, suggests that extrinsic motivators such as these have their limits, especially where teamwork and creativity are required. In fact, he says, they can encourage counterproductive behaviours. Intrinsic motivation fuels our direction, our concentration, and our persistence to a task. This sort of motivation, intrinsic or internal, is fueled from within. In my profession, social work, people start out motivated by internal desires to help and support people, but can sometimes end up by being driven by court dates or due date for reports. There is evidence that the former motivates people more effectively than the latter. In all we do, we need to focus on those internal motivators. Daniel Pink feels we enter this world as children, wired to be active and engaged, ready to explore and develop, but somehow later we become passive. He argues that it can be how we are managed that switches us to this state, because of how we are asked to work. It has been motivated extrinsically. rather than intrinsically that is causing the problem. We have to acknowledge two things so that we can think about what to do about them. Motivation is finite. Motivation relies on us being disciplined and exploring tasks in a structured way, but it runs out as we get tired. Anyone who has ever been on a diet knows that our resilience to be motivated towards a goal runs out as the day goes on. I can relate to this on my own personal experience. Monday morning is often new diet day with a strong level of motivation. Breakfast is easy. I'm on a diet full of energy and vigour. I take my prepared salad to work. I've got this. Then, the afternoon slump, the temptation of chocolate. The feeling is overwhelming. Motivation is running low. Do I give in or not? Daniel Kahneman, author of Thinking Fast and Slow, says that anything that requires self-control demands a lot from us, and as a consequence is depleting and unpleasant. I eat the chocolate. One of the problems is we have a tendency to prioritise short-term goals and have limited motivation towards things that will benefit us in the future rather than now. Making the decision now to start writing the report due in 2 weeks is prone to procrastination because there is no immediate benefit. Taking exercise, going on a diet, flushing your teeth, writing that report are examples of things that only have a long-term benefit. We're likely to procrastinate over these because they have a limited short-term benefit. In fact, some of these things may feel uncomfortable in the short term. You suffer now and get the benefits later. Alternatively, things like a glass of wine or a piece of cake or finishing work early rather than doing that report give you pleasure in the short term, with consequences being suffered later. Motivation is easier when we get a short-term gain and harder when the gain is in the long term. The secret is sticking to being organised and maintaining our planning. That's bringing the future into the present so we can control it. In fact, the more we apply ourselves to the difficult long-term goals we have, the easier they become to motivate ourselves towards. We develop a habit and we avoid those last-minute panics. Imagine starting out on a Monday morning knowing that that report, which is due on Thursday, is already done. Also, our motivation can decline when we feel stressed and anxious. It also decreases as a consequence of fatigue. The longer we engage in tasks that demand our energy, the more the returns on effort invested decline. It comes as no surprise, given this, and the fact that we will be about 2/3 of the way through our working day, that productivity decreases on an afternoon. It then takes more mental effort to apply ourselves to tasks we would usually easily do. Note, mental work has a physical impact. We have to be physically as well as mentally prepared for it. Self-care has a role to play here in helping us maintain our motivation for as long as possible. As we saw in the exercise episode, we can fuel our motivation through some gentle lunchtime exercise. We learnt in the rest episode not to put off rest until the evening or the weekend, but to punctuate our days with forms of both active and inactive rest. We have seen that what we eat has an impact on how we feel, and getting a good night's sleep ensures we are as energized as possible. All of these things help. Passion for the work we do motivates us. We become absorbed in our profession. Having a purpose taps us into that internal, abundant energy that is there in us all, just waiting to be discovered. Passion stimulates us to achieve goals not only at work, but in all spheres of our lives. Passion can move us beyond simply bringing our cognitive, physical, and emotional drivers to the practical task of work, because it will also lead us to see what we do as enjoyable and pleasurable. Being positive and being in a good mood promotes creativity, cognitive flexibility, innovation, and responsiveness. It feels obvious to say, but enjoying the things we do is good for us. Enjoying the things we do is about finding what motivates us internally and supporting that with rest, recuperation, and good self-care routines.